This video is sponsored by Storyblocks Video. Today, I'm going to show you guys how to create a professional camera zooming logo animation into After Effects without using any third-party plugins. It looks very complex, has a professional feel to it, and very simple to create. I'm Nikhil from Dope Motions, and without any further ado, let's get started. If you have ever been in the need for a quick video clip for a B-roll, After Effects template or motion backgrounds, then Storyblocks Video is for you. I personally use Storyblocks for my YouTube videos, client projects and many other different stuff. There are times when your creative needs are compromised due to low budget. For example, let's say I am shooting a short film and my location is near Statue of Liberty and I want an aerial footage of Statue of Liberty, and taking a drone shot would exceed my budget because drone shots are not that cheap. That is when Storyblocks Video comes in, and I can easily search for an aerial footage of the Statue of Liberty and use it in my video. Storyblocks is a subscription-based resource providing unlimited downloads of royalty-free stock footages, motion backgrounds and After Effects templates. All videos are 100% royalty-free and you can keep all the media forever. New clips are added regularly, so there is always something fresh to download. Make sure to check out Storyblocks Video, the link will be down in the description. Alright, so today's tutorial is gonna be a bit long, I believe, so I suggest you guys to, grab a coffee or something. Anyway, so here we are in After Effects, and here I have some images that I will be using for this tutorial, and the project file is absolutely free, so you can download the project file from the description. Very simple. The first image is of a lens, which is just, a cropped lens image. Then we have the lens component, which is kind of a cover of the lens. We have a lens flare and we have a reflection for our lens. So pretty simple for images. Let's start by creating a new composition. Make this 1920 into 1080. Let's make this 30 FPS. You can also make this 60 FPS if you want to, but to get a very nice and cinematic looking animation, I would suggest you to go with 24, 25 or 30 FPS. Let's rename this comp to main comp. Hit OK. Now let's create particular compositions for every particular image. So what we can do is just drag and drop the lens component 1 into this icon. So it's going to create a new composition. So we have a lens component 1 composition like that. Let's drag that out. Let's create same for the lens component 2. So create a composition by dragging it into that icon, and I'll call this lens component 2. Let's drag that out. Let's drag the lens flare into a new composition and call this lens flare. I don't want that to. Drag that out. Let's create one more composition for our reflection. Okay, so we have composition for every image. Now let's create one more composition, which is going to be 1920 by 1080, and I'll call this inside camera. And this composition, we will be using it for placing our images in 3D space into the Z space actually. So what I can do is create a new camera, maybe a 24 or 20, let's go with 28 millimeter. Let's go with actually 24 millimeter camera. Okay. And for the background color, I'll keep it white. By the way, hit Ctrl K to open up the comp settings and hit OK. Now drag in the lens component 1, make it 3D, and then hit S to bring down the scale properties. Maybe I'll scale that down to somewhere around, let's go with maybe this big, looks good. Okay, and hit P to bring down the position properties and set the position to around 470. Alright, now I'll log the composition just for the understanding. I'm going to create a new viewer, and for this I'll set this to top view so you can see what's going on. So this is a top view and this is our active camera view. Now let's add the lens reflection. Actually, I'm going to add the lens reflection later on. Let's add the lens component 2, make it 3D, hit S to bring down the scale properties. I'll just scale this down a bit to around something like, let's go with something like 35 looks good, and hit P to bring down the position properties. And as you know, we set this one to 470, so I'll set this one to around maybe 465, just a bit ahead of the last layer. So 465. So now we can see it's a bit, just a touch ahead from the first layer, that is the component 1. All right, maybe I'll scale this a bit down, so something like this big. Now let's duplicate the lens component 1. So hit Ctrl D to duplicate it, bring this onto the top of component 2. Hit P to bring down the position properties and set the position to 400. Let's hit S to bring down the scale properties, and maybe I'll increase this a touch, like maybe 42 or something like that. Then select the lens component 2 again, hit Ctrl D to duplicate it, bring this on the top. Hit P to bring down the position properties, set the position to 300. And I can hit S to bring down the scale properties. And for the scale, I'll set this to around 35. Okay, just a touch back. Or maybe I think I'll just keep it somewhere around there. So 31 looks good to me. Now let's select the component 1 again, hit Ctrl D to duplicate it, put this on the top, hit P to bring down the position properties, and for the position this time I'm going to go with 200. And hit S to bring down the scale properties. For the scale property, I'll leave it up to maybe 42 looks good for now. Then select the component 2 again, hit Ctrl D to duplicate it, bring this on the top. And as you can see in the top view, I'm positioning them into the Z position, creating a depth for our camera. So let's select the lens component 2 again. This time I'm going to scale this up a bit. So hit S and scale this up to maybe double. So I'll go with 60. Or let's go with 65. Just like so. Yep, that looks good. Hit P to bring down the position properties, and for the position I'll go with 110 for the Z position. Like so. Maybe for the camera, I can go into the camera settings and I'll go with a 28 or maybe a 15mm camera. That looks much better. Okay, let's select the component 2 again, hit Ctrl D, hit P to bring down the position properties, and this time I'm going to set the position to 100. And for the scale, I'll go with maybe, let's try something like 50%. And I came up with these figures after, messing around with the properties for a long time. So, I have remembered the position, so I'm doing it directly, but you can take your time. You can also play around with the position if you want to, but just to save time and just to keep the tutorial shorter, I'm just using the same values as I figured out to be very good with the position and the scale as well. So for this one, I'll hit S. 50% looks good. Hit P to bring down the position properties. Let's create one more copy. So hit Ctrl D, hit S to bring down the scale properties. I'll scale that up to around 60%. Okay, let's hit P to bring down the position properties. And for the position, I'll go with half, maybe like 50%. I think I went with the same scale right here as well. So I'll increase the scale of this one a bit, maybe something like that. Now let's again select the component 1, hit Ctrl D, duplicate it, bring this onto the top. Hit P to bring down the position properties again. For the position this time, for the Z position, I'm going to set this to 0. And for the scale, I'll increase the scale. Let's say something like a bit bigger. Something like that looks good. Let's create one more copy. So hit Ctrl D to duplicate it, hit P to bring down the position, and set this to -90. And for the scale, I think I'll go with the same as 64, or maybe I'll increase that. So I'll go with something like 115. Now you can see we have completed positioning our layers, but it is too sequential, like it's very symmetrical. So what we can do is we can select the component 1 layers, hit R to bring down the rotation properties, and just rotate the Z rotation very randomly. So I can go right here, I can rotate this just like so, maybe give this a bit of rotation, maybe something like that. Go down, rotate this a bit. Just trying to keep it more random, you know, something like that. This one as well. And this one as well. Pretty random. Hit Control A, hit U so we can close them all. Let's select the component 2 and do the same thing. So hit R and then randomly give them some rotation. Just like that. I'll select P for the camera to, you know, mess around with the position. So yeah, this is, I think, looking pretty good. All right, so hit Control A, U. Now let's place the lens flare. First of all, I'll close this one and I'll just unlock that. So let's drag in the reflection first of all. So I'm going to drag in the reflection right here and hit F4. Set the blending mode to screen. Hit P to bring down the position, and of course hit F4 first of all, make it 3D, and then hit P so we can bring up the position. And for the position I'll go with 465 because our main position was 470. Just like so. Hit T and bring down the opacity a bit to maybe 60% so that it's not that much intense. And yeah, looks pretty good. Maybe I can hit S and scale this a bit, just like so. Okay, also I can add the lens flare that we have, so I'll drag the lens flare right here, maybe make it 3D, hit F4 and set the blending mode to screen, and yeah, bring down the opacity a bit. Also select it and hit P to bring down the position properties, and I'll set this to 450. Hit T, maybe I'll bring up the opacity a bit. Maybe I'll just keep it 100. I think that looks much better. Yep. Now let's go into the main comp and drag in the inside camera composition. Also make sure to turn on the collapse transformation. Let's create a new camera. For this, I'll go with a nice 15mm camera, hit OK. And set the position to 0 for X, Y. Oh, for X and Y. And for the Z, I'll leave it at -800. Let's create a new null object so that we can control our camera using the null object. Make it 3D, parent the camera. Let's rename this to cam_control. There we go. Now I'll hit R to bring down the rotation properties, and now we can start positioning our camera and animating it. So I'll play around with the X rotation. I can move this maybe something like that. Looks good. And for the Y, I'll go a bit, maybe something like that. Looks good. Maybe I'll go into the camera and rotate this component a bit because I want that to come in front of the camera. Inside camera, rotate this. Yep, that is looking much better. Let's go into the camera one, hit U 2 times so we can see the zoom property, and make sure the zoom is at 800. And yeah, everything else looks good to me for now. So select the cam control again, hit R to bring down the rotation properties, create a keyframe. First of all, I'll set this to 70. That looks much better. Create a keyframe on X rotation and Y rotation. Go to 10 seconds and set the rotation properties to 0 of both of them. And then go back into the camera 1 and set the position of X and Y to 0, 0. All right. Maybe I'll make it a bit zoom out, just like so. Maybe something like that. Yep, so we have the desired look, as you can see. Maybe I'll rotate the inside camera a bit, just like so. Maybe a bit more. Yep, That looks much better, I believe. Okay, so this is looking good, and we have a very simple animation. I'll go to 9 seconds, select the cam control, hit P to bring down the position properties, create a keyframe, go to 11 seconds, and let's zoom in just like that. Pretty cool. So I'll just zoom in all the way. So we have a pretty interesting animation, as you can see. Also, one more thing I think I need to do is select the inside camera, hit S, and bring down the scale properties to around 50% because I want more depth into the scene and I'm not getting that. So I'm going to hit U 2 times again, and for the position I'll go with -800, just like so. Hit U and I'll get rid of the position keyframes. So we have something like that. Now you can see we get more depth into our lens. Pretty cool. Now I'll go to 9 seconds, create a keyframe on the position, go to 11 seconds. And now if I zoom in, you can see we have much more depth into our lens. So go all the way until you're out of the lens, just like that. Select just the position keyframes and hit F9 to ease those keyframes. Go into the graph editor and make sure to right click and select edit in speed graph. I'll select this point and drag it to the right, just like that, and maybe a bit this one as well. So we have a much more interesting zoom in animation, as you can see. Pretty cool. I'll select this keyframes and hit F9 to just ease the keyframes, and let's see the animation. So I think it is pretty cool. Yep, that is looking very nice. Now what we can do is we can turn on the depth of field, which is going to give us some really interesting look. So hit A 2 times on the keyboard to reveal all the properties. I'll turn on the depth of field, increase the aperture to around 250. Like so. Let's go at the very beginning. And then I can play around with the focus distance depending on how intense or which position I want to focus on. So I'll keep somewhere around there. Create a keyframe and I'll move maybe 1 second forward. Then I can move the focus distance depending on where I want it to focus. So something like that. Go a bit forward in time. Let's set this right here. Go a bit forward. Move this one just like so. So yeah, I think it's pretty much in focus. Yeah. And then when it starts to zoom in, I can just, try to keep the lens in focus. So just go right here. Pull this closer, pull the focus distance more closer as the lens is getting close to our camera. Like that. Bring this really close so the reflection is in focus. As you can see right here. This is really close. Trying to focus on the reflection just a touch like so. Maybe delete this keyframe. Yep, so there we go. This is looking pretty nice. As you can see as we get closer to the cam. Yep. So let's check out our animation before we move on further with the project. So as you can see, this is looking pretty cool. But we're not there yet because the lens is pretty still and I want to add some movement into the lens. So what I can do is I'll go to somewhere around, maybe let's go to 5 seconds. And what I can do is go inside the camera comp and rotate the lenses a bit. So I can select maybe this one. Actually, let's select all the first components and hit R to bring down the rotation properties for the Z rotation. Create a keyframe, go maybe 1 second forward in time and rotate it a bit, just a touch. So there is not a lot of rotation, very minimal, something like that. So I'll hit Control A, Control U, and then hit U so we can see just the keyframes. Select the keyframes and I'm going to hit F9 to ease the keyframes, go into the graph editor and I can create maybe kind of a peak into the center just so that the animation is a bit more smoother, something like that. Cause I need to go at 7 seconds and then create a keyframe. So I'll click on this diamond icon to create a keyframe, go back to 8 seconds. And then I'm going to select this keyframes and then bring them back to the position. So hit Control C, Control V, Control C, Control V, Control C, Control V, Control C, Control V, Control C, Control V. Okay. So we have the same animation. All right, let's go ahead and let's confirm that the graph editor was correct, but it wasn't. So I'll select this, hit F9 and create a peak again. Just like so. And now I can displace them. So I can select the keyframe, maybe displace them a bit. Same with this one. So now we have a much more interesting look, as you can see. Now let's go back into the main comp. And yes, this is when it starts. So what I can do is select the camera, hit U 2 times to reveal all the properties. And I can create a keyframe on focus distance. So what I'll do is I'll create a keyframe right here. Go to 6 seconds and drag this keyframe that we previously created. I'll drag it here, or I can delete it and create a new keyframe and just bring the lens out of focus. So just bring that out of focus. Maybe I'll pull this out just like touch. So when it rotates, it comes out of focus. So I can select this, hit F9, go into the curve, and then I can just create a peak. So let's check out our animation. So as you can see, as the lens rotates, the lens gets out of focus. Maybe I'll need to tweak it a bit. So I'll just move this a bit forward because I want this to get blurred or out of focus after the rotation of the lens. Just like that, maybe a bit more. Yup. I think the timing is correct. And then it will stay out of focus for some time. So I'll select this keyframe, hit Control C, Control V, and I'll just try to position it when the camera rotates again to bring everything in focus. That is, there we go. So this is a bit tedious and you need to be a little precise while doing this, so you can take your time. So you can see I'll select this keyframe and hit F9 just to ease that a bit, maybe increase the timing. Yep, that looks much better, as you can see. So it rotates, goes out of focus, rotates and comes in focus. Just a small little animation. And now when it zoom in, I need to make it more, I want to make it look more organic. So what I can do is I can create a new adjustment layer, call this CC lens, because that is the effect I'll be using. CC lens. I'll go to 10 seconds. Hold Alt and close square, open square bracket to crop the layer. And I'll set the size to 100. For the convergence, yes, that is what it's called. Set this to 0. Create a keyframe. Go to all the way right here and set this to around 60. So now if I hit U, we have this really nice lens distortion, as you can see in the edges. On the edges, you see the difference. Very nice. That is looking pretty cool, as you can see. Just to make the camera zoom in look more organic, you see. Very, very nice. Also, let's add a lens flare, but as you know, this tutorial is 100% After Effects, no plugins. What I'm going to do is create a new solid. So hit Control Y, call this lens flare, and use the inbuilt lens flare. So what I can do is, first of all, hit F4, change the blending mode to add, and add a lens flare. That is the inbuilt lens flare. For the flare type, I'll set the 105mm prime, and everything looks good. Maybe increase the intensity to 130. Oh, that is a bit too much, maybe 120. Then let's add a hue and saturation. Click on the colorize, and I'll go with a nice, maybe purplish blue color. Maybe something like that. Increases saturation a bit. Also, I'll position this right over here onto the top, so that looks much better. And for the position, for the color, actually I'm gonna go with something like that. Bring down the saturation down a bit and add some noise just to avoid any kind of color bendings, maybe 1%. Also add some fast blur to this. Put it on the top of the noise, and let's set this to somewhere around 200. Repeat edge pixels. So we have this nice light fall off, as you can see, which looks pretty nice. Yep, so as you can see, this is looking very, very nice. Let's create a new adjustment layer again, called the CC, which is going to be our color correction layer. So first of all, I'm going to add a fast blur to this. Very small, like 0.7, just so we don't get any harsh anti-aliasing or edges, which is possible in this case. And then I can add some sharp into this, maybe something like 15%. Okay, that is looking good. Let's add some curves adjustment. Oh, just a touch. I'll go into blue channel maybe and increase that. Oh, just a touch. So you can see before and after. Very minimal, but looks pretty good. And add some maybe vibrance to this. Maybe somewhere, let's go with 20. Yep, so this is looking much better, I believe. Now you can also add some maybe particles into the background or into front of the lens, make it look more interesting. But I think this is looking pretty good for now. And the tutorial is already pretty long, so I'll try to keep it a bit short, and I'll try to complete it in the less time. So now the last thing that we need to do is add a logo, and it's pretty simple. So what I can do is create a new composition called this logo. Hit OK, and Of course, your logo can be anything that you want to use. I'm just going to use a text, so I'll type in maybe Dope Studio. Aligning it into the center, make it white. And for the font, I'll go with a nice Sugo Trial Regular, one of my favorite fonts. And scale this up maybe. Now obviously you can put your logo right here, but I'm just going with a text. I'll type in something like okay, so let's say this is our logo. I'll move this a bit into the center just like that. Let's go into the main comp and drag in the logo composition. I'll put it onto the lens. I put it on top of the lens, CC lens effect, and hit S, bring down the scaling a bit, just like so. And I want this to start appearing from right here maybe. Okay. So hit T to bring down the opacity, create a keyframe, set this to 0, go a bit forward in time, set this to 100. Maybe bit like so. Select it and hit F9. Let's see if the timing is proper. Yep, I think that is proper. Also, I'm gonna add some scaling animation as well. So create a keyframe on the scale, go all the way up, set this a bit like so. Let's see what we have. So yep, as you can see, this is looking very cool. Now we get this jump right over here, I believe. So I'm gonna just bring down the opacity of this. So hit T, create a keyframe, go here and set this to 0. So it's very simple. And the last thing that I'm gonna do is select the Dope Studio, that is our logo, and add a CC lens effect on that. Let's set this to 100. Bring down the conversion, maybe something like that. Create a keyframe, go right over here and bring this down to 0. So a little bit of distortion going on. So I'll select this and hit U. So I'll move this one as well, select it and hit F9 actually to ease it, and that should make it happen. Some nice lens effect onto our logo as well. So very simple and easy to do. So yeah, that is all for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if it did, then make sure to subscribe to the channel, comment down below if you enjoyed it, and also make sure to follow me on Instagram at dope.motions. I will see you guys in the next video. Till then, take care. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to stay raw, stay creative.